Welcome to the And She Looked Up Creative Hour podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Hartfield, and I'm an artist and an entrepreneur. And yes, those two things can go together. This podcast is for the artists, the creatives, and the makers who want to find a way to make a living doing what they love. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the And She Looked Up Creative Hour. I'm your host, Melissa, and I'm back again this week with Heather Travis. We started a great conversation last week where we were reviewing our art businesses and how they did for the year 2020. And originally, we were also going to talk in that episode about our plans for 2021, but it turned into a bigger conversation than we expected, and we didn't want to cut it short. So we decided to move 2021 into its own episode, which actually makes a lot of sense now that I think about it. And so today we're going to be talking about what our plans are for 2021 with our art businesses. So we're going to be talking about the new things we want to try, how we're planning to expand our businesses, how we're going to try and figure out how to work in a year where we still don't know what normal is going to look like. And we're going to talk about like some of the marketing things we want to try and all of that stuff. So let's dive right in.
Dum, dum, dum.
That's right. So we're almost at the end of 2020. I am pretty sure you've had thoughts about what you want to do next year.
Yes.
Where do you feel like you're starting from this year? Like, do you feel like you're in a good place? Are you happy with where 2020 ended and you feel like you've got room, like you know where you're going to grow?
Yes. And yes. I feel like this year, especially, this year, and we talked about it last episode, this year was such a weird year for so many reasons. But I feel like I'm ending on a really positive note from the art perspective. I know I'm more confident than ever in my skills, which is, I think, the best thing for an artist, to be confident in themselves and their abilities, for sure. So I'm more confident in that. I also have really solid ideas. Like I know where I want to go with the business. I have thrown some spaghetti against the wall, like trying out Redbubble, trying out Society 6. That gave me a lot of courage to try new things and see how they go. And I'm also more confident in investing in myself. So that's time, but also we talked last episode about the studio that we have in the house. We are undertaking a massive renovation on the studio, I'm going to get heat in there, holy moly, which also means that I'm going to have air conditioning there in the summer, so I won't have to paint in the garage. Amazing. But we're renovating it, like it'll have actually walls and all of those things. And so to justify that renovation and really, like I really have to put my business hat on. And so that's an investment, but also investing in the tools. I've treated myself to an Apple Pencil recently, which has been the best thing I've ever bought myself. I'm not joking. It's the coolest thing ever, and a total game changer for so many things. And it actually, in fact, impacts. I'll just list off. I want to, for 2021, really have an active daily art practice. I've never had a true daily art practice. And I've said to myself at a minimum, I need to doodle on my iPad with my Apple pencil every day. And that is a big one for me, but it also allows me to just create so much more. So like mural mock-ups, when I was doing them, I was doing sketches, like actual sketches. And then, client would come back and say, could you do this in Benjamin Moore sand dust? And I'm like looking through my Crayolas being like, this looks like, right? Whereas now I can actually do a mural concept in paint swatch colors and it's on their building as opposed to my little sketch of it. And there's so, like 2021, all I see is possibility. That's all I saw with 2020, funny enough. And then of course we had to pivot. But all I see is possibility. And I'm really glad for that.
Awesome. That's very
What about you?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the Apple Pencil. So one of the things that I have spent the last few weeks doing, and Angelina and I talked about it a little bit. So I did the Rachel Cook plan for your best year ever, which is a program she offered to her podcast listeners. And I actually sat down with it and worked my way through it. And it was really, really helpful to me in terms of figuring out, because it looks at not just your business, but also your life, like how you build your business to support the life that you want, and how those can go hand in hand. You don't have to wait to have one while you work on the other, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I've been working my way through that, and one of the things that that you have to do as part of this is list all the things financially that you are looking to include in your life, or that you would like to have in your life. And so I'm a minimalist. I don't need a lot of stuff. That's just not how I'm wired. It's not to say there's anything wrong with it if you like stuff, but that's just not how I'm wired. So I don't always operate from a strong financial position, as strong as I should. And so this year I kind of sat down and worked out all the things financially that would make my life better. You know, as somebody who doesn't believe that money makes you happy, but there's definitely ways where it could make my life better. And then one of the interesting things she had you do was to identify the things financially that the upgrades, she calls them upgrades, identify the upgrades that you could make right now, that you don't need to wait for. And after I had gone through all of this and actually sat down, one of the things I've been dreading is my iPad died in the summer, and it was an iPad 2. So it was like the second version of the iPad, really old.
Yeah, wow.
And I miss it. I'm so sad that it's gone. But my MacBook is on its last legs. And so I've been really just dreading the fact that I've got to replace a MacBook and an iPad. And the iPad has been like a nice to have, and the MacBook is a must have. But I started thinking about it, and I'm like, the iPad Pro is essentially a laptop without a keyboard, but you can get a keyboard.
Yes.
So I'm like, do I really need to replace both of them? So instead of just getting like a smaller, less expensive iPad, I'm thinking of just getting an iPad Pro, the big screen one, with an Apple Pencil, because I can't do any digital art unless I'm working on my Wacom tablet.
Yeah.
And investing in an Apple Pencil and using that and replacing my MacBook and my iPad in one fell swoop. And I think that's an upgrade I can make sooner than later after working through some stuff. So I'm very excited about that, because being able to work digitally in a different way. I do work digitally in the sense that I take my hand-drawn illustrations and I digitize them using a tablet, not an iPad, but and Photoshop. And the last piece of the puzzle was I was just surfing around in a few podcast groups that I'm in last night to see how easy or possible it is to edit podcasts in GarageBand on an iPad. And it looks like it's very doable. So I do most of my editing on my iMac, but it's just, I like the idea of being able to edit portably if I'm on the go. So I'm super excited to look at doing that in the new year. I love traditional hand-drawn art. That is my love. I love the feel of my sketchbook. I love the feel of my markers. But there is
I even like the snap when you put lids back on.
That sound, the snap, the smell of the paper, all of that stuff. I love that. I do not want to give that up. I also find that a lot of digital art tends to look the same. I don't always see a person's personality come out in the same way that it does in traditional art. So I don't want to give that up. But at the same time, being able to do digital art could be a game changer from a product creation standpoint. So I'm very
an enhancement, right? Like it's a complement to, not a replacement for.
Totally.
Yeah.
So that's my big upgrade that I want to make from a tech standpoint.
Yeah.
But I'm excited about that. But in terms of like moving ahead, I just went off on a whole rant, or not a rant, but a whole tangent about iPads and
No, but that honestly, I think that's such a good one in terms of the investment, because, and that was funny enough, the thing that I kept saying was, I really hope somebody like, and of course I'm saying this to my husband over and over again. He's the only person I say this to. So like, he's the somebody, right? And I said, I really hope somebody buys me an Apple Pencil for Christmas. I really hope somebody buys me an Apple Pencil for Christmas. And I kept saying the reason I wanted is because, and I was going through a pitch process trying to do a mural, and I was like,
always
do you know
pitching.
exactly. I'm like, do you know how much easier this would be if I, and finally he turned around, he looked at me and he's like, okay, the money comes from the same place. Could you just go and buy yourself this thing for Christmas? And like, and I did that day, and I bought it, and he got an all caps text message. This is a game changer. And it really did. Like, it's such a treat, but I'll tell you, it made my pitch better. It was received beautifully. We're still waiting on hearing back on whether my pitch was accepted because it had a big dollar sign attached to it, but still. But it made me more confident in putting that pitch out there. It made my pitch a better one. And if I get the job, I will say that, part of that came from having the technology and the tools to do that. And so don't go out and buy all new brushes and all new canvas. Like, don't go out and buy a 10,000 meter roll of canvas because you're ready to do it. Like, there's silly investments, right? But then would this make my creative process better, more efficient? Am I using my time better? Like, that's where you need to look. So I love the process that you went through in terms of looking at those numbers. To me, I think that's really important because as artists, I think too, we can get distracted by the shiny, pretty things and having the new perfect, pretty brush or pen or note paper. Like, and sometimes the thing isn't the difference between you and the $1 million artist. It isn't, right? But sometimes it is.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, they are exactly that. They're tools in your toolbox. And, if you have tools in your toolbox that you don't use, they're not helping you. But if it's a tool that you can put in your toolbox that is going to make a big difference. And, I could have easily just gone and carried on with that idea of like, I need to replace the iPad. I need to replace the MacBook. Mm-hmm. I need, but instead start looking at ways where you can consolidate things. Like, is there a tool that does all the things but doesn't do any of them really well? Or do you need to have a really specialized tool for that particular thing that maybe doesn't do anything else? But just look at where you can make changes in your business that from a smart standpoint. Do your research.
Exactly.
So on that note, one of the big fails I had from 2020 that I did mention that I bought a Cricut cutting machine. I hated it. I freaking hated it. I cannot tell you how much I have hated a piece of technology ever in my life. I know there are a lot of people out there who use Cricuts, and honestly, the first few months that I had it, it was great, and then it just went haywire, and nothing worked to fix it. So it's an expensive brick sitting in my basement right now. And I went out and bought a Silhouette Portrait 3, which had literally just come out. There were no reviews of it online, nothing. And so I went and I just bought it blind because I was so angry and so irritated. Not a smart decision, but I will say it is one that I'm very happy with. I'm really, really happy with my Portrait 3. All I use my cutting machine for is cutting stickers, and the Portrait 3 is a very scaled down version of a cutting machine. It doesn't cut through some of the bigger, heavier materials. You have a much smaller workspace. But man, it makes me happy.
Exactly. So and I think too, there's a difference between investing in, so like doing the reno that we're doing, the heat, air conditioning, cooling system, that's way more expensive than an Apple Pencil, right?
Yes.
And so there's investing, right? There's a $120 Apple Pencil, and then there's an aircon unit, like apples and oranges, and in fact, Apple versus Apple truck, right? And so totally different, and that's where you need to think through that investment for your business. Like if 2021 is I'm going to invest in myself, it could be just time, right? You could say I'm going to allow myself an hour a day.
Like you're doing with having a daily art practice. That's an investment in yourself, one that will pay off in spades. And it's something that I would really like to do for 2021. I need to get back in the habit of creating every day. I'm much happier when I'm doing that. My work gets so much better when I'm doing that. And it's just my happy place. I have to figure out a way to get back there. As
Totally.
we mentioned last week, I really didn't do much in the way of creating at all in 2020. And I'm quite sad about that. So that is something I really want to change for 2021.
Funny enough, and sorry, I'm just as you were talking, one of the things that really allowed my inspiration to keep trotting through more than I would say it would have otherwise in 2020 was, and we've talked about them a few times before, but I teach a Friday afternoon art class with my godchildren and my nieces and nephews. And it's very informal. It's on Zoom. And that Friday afternoon art class, which still continues, so we've been doing it every Friday since March, and we're still doing it, has been wildly inspirational for me, like wildly. Yeah. And that is, in fact, one of my goals for 2021 is to figure out a way. So like I'm doing this with my nieces and nephews and godchildren. Their parents aren't paying me. I'm not paying me. I'm just hanging out in my studio with my nieces and nephews making fun stuff. But I would love to put some structure to it and charge kids $1 a class. Like this isn't, again, it's not a money-making object. It's more getting my name out there and really just inspiring art.
So on that note, have you considered approaching you're in Ontario, I'm in BC, so cities are different, whatever. But here, our local city has like their continuing education programs and what do they call it? It comes from the Parks and Recreation Board, but every quarter we get a big flyer of all the different programs that are available to seniors, adults, teenagers, children, whatever, and it includes all the athletic programs, like when the swimming pools are open and all that stuff. Right. But it's also like art classes for kids, or like, have you thought about doing like approaching the city and saying like, or the Parks and Rec Board and saying like, I'd love to offer an online art class?
No. Yeah. So funny enough, no, not them. I have talked to the gallery where I have an exhibit because they do some in-person classes. So I've talked to them about doing some remote classes. But that's a great idea. And the other,
because that's where moms go. They go to the city, exactly. Right? They're looking to the city for the city children's programs. Yes. And funny enough, that's making a mental note on exactly. I did write it down. And I dog walk in the afternoons. I walk past a number of our neighbors are elementary school teachers at our local elementary school. So that's something else. Yeah. And they're all looking for online programming right now because they can't do a lot of in-person stuff. But that would also turn into a really great in-person workshop that you could do on a Saturday afternoon or something.
Yes.
Where you actually have the supplies and stuff, and then the city will help. The city will pay you usually,
exactly.
and often give you a budget for supplies and stuff. Also, if you're listening to this and you have a bunch of used art supplies and you don't know what to do with them, take them to your local rec center or something. They are always looking for gently used art supplies that they can use in the kids programming. So
any of the mom and top programs. Yes, they would love that stuff. And that's another part of what I want to tackle for 2021 is, and people have said it to me on and off for years on Instagram. I would pay you to come like do a virtual, like how to rearrange my furniture, how to pick a paint color for this room. And that's something I'm looking at doing is so there's two aspects of that. One is a very small chunk, like really quick consultation. So you've got a home office, bring me in with a Zoom call and let's figure out how we can just rearrange the furniture and make you happier. Do we want to hang art in a little different arrangement? So like quick consultation for making your room a happier place. This is more on the home decor, home design area, which is a strength of mine. But then another would be, and I've talked to a few girlfriends who work in very corporate environments about this, is doing like corporate paint nights. And you have a Zoom call with me and we have a set painting and all the supplies are sent to you and we do a paint night and we create a painting. and there's so many spin-offs to that. You know, you could just do creation for the sake of creation, so everybody's doing something fun. You could do something totally branded, right? Working with a corporation and like, here's your Coca-Cola logo interpreted by 20 senior team members kind of thing. Like you could go really deep into the, you know, corporate versus painting for just bright colors. But I think that's an interesting opportunity because I also see the opportunity of pivoting that back into in person.
Yes.
Eventually.
Yeah. I mean, that's the great thing. If you can come up with a concept that works on Zoom, there's a pretty strong possibility that it's a concept that will work in person, and you can take that out into the world, hopefully by the end of 2021.
Wouldn't that be nice?
I know. I mean, I was watching the news the other night, and the epidemiologists they had on were essentially saying that, you know, you could probably expect to be masking and social distancing to the end of 2021, but it will be getting like every month should be getting easier. So, you know, hopefully I think most of us will be able to handle it quite well if we can see that the light is getting brighter every month.
Yes.
And right now, I think we're just in this place where the light just seems to be getting darker every month, and like literally and figuratively. So
figuratively, yes, exactly. And that's that. So that's my, like, this year there were so many plans heading into 2020 that were so. They were like immovable objects. And so when the plans fell, it wasn't like, okay, how do we pivot this? Like, there was no pivot. It was literally, we'll scrap that. Let's move over here. And I want to be able to set things up that can, I'm going to say pivot again, but that can pivot or can transition or mesh, mold, weave into something new. That I don't want to create something that then I just throw away.
Yeah, no, I think that's really smart. And I think a lot of the things that you're already talking about are definitely things that can carry over into in-person events and workshops and things like that. So
And then what about you?
So a big one for me that I've already mentioned is I really have to get back into creating new stuff. My two big goals, overarching goals for 2021 for all my businesses are net revenue. So we're talking profit here, not not gross revenue. I don't care about gross revenue dollars. I want to know what's going in my pocket.
Yeah.
And visibility. So one of the challenges I have is that my main business is for sale, and that is something that is just going to always be in the background until it is sold and I know what's happening with it. But my other businesses are all either very new or they are businesses that have been, I don't want to say neglected, but not a focus, and I'm bringing them back to the focus. So for me, visibility is a big one. And as I mentioned last week, you know, I've done a really good job of selling to the people in my immediate surrounding, my immediate circle. And what I really need to do for 2021 is expand that circle. And one of the ways that I am going to have to do that is to put new content out there. I need to, I can put a picture of my cute robot sticker on Instagram, but people have seen that robot many times now. Like, it's not new. It's like, oh, cute, she made it into a sticker, but it's not new. And so I really need to get back into putting new stuff up, and not just for me. I've already said it's very important for me, but I need to be putting it out there for my audience, my followers, who are in the hopes that more people will see it, and just keeping things fresh and giving them a reason to come back every day. So that's a big one for me. I really need to focus on creating. That has to be a big part of it. Another thing that I am thinking about, because I've had such a great response to my greeting cards in 2020, is so I've been thinking about potentially doing a Patreon.
Yes.
Both for my art business, but also for the podcast as well. I'm not ready to do that yet. I have done some research into it. An artist who I have a tremendous amount of respect for on YouTube, funnily enough, did a video maybe a month or two ago on, she has an extremely successful Patreon. And she talked about how it's evolved for her, how she started it, all that stuff. And I realized from watching that video that I'm not there yet. But it's in my head. I need to have a bigger audience before I go down that route. So it's in my head. But one of the things I was thinking about was potentially doing a monthly greeting card club, or a monthly greeting card subscription box. I'm not entirely sure of the model yet, but I was kind of thinking like, and I got this idea from a stationery store in Oregon that does something along these lines. They send out a kind of like a monthly stationery box type thing. And I was thinking, you know, it might be kind of fun if people could sign up. You pay a certain amount every month and you get 3 greeting cards. So this is for people who send greeting cards, obviously.
Yeah.
But then I could also theme it. So for February or maybe January, I won't have it off the ground that quickly, but maybe in January you get one of the designs is a Valentine's design, so that you have your Valentine card. And I can do other things as the year goes along. And the idea being that you would get 3 original designs every month. And then eventually those original designs would move to my Etsy shop once they've gone out in the box. So the people who subscribe to the club or the subscription get first crack at them, but eventually
that's a fun idea.
Yeah, so that's one of the things. And that's, you know, you asked me last week about my Christmas cards being the most expensive item on my and my bestseller. And whether I was thinking about doing something with that for 2021. And I thought, you know, people have shown that they're willing to spend more money with me. So it's not that they're not interested in spending more money. I just have to give them the right thing that's going to convince them to spend the money, right? Like nobody's going to spend $50 with me if it doesn't do something for them, right? So I was thinking that could be an interesting way. I was also thinking of potentially doing a sticker club where you get 3, you know, and those can be done at a sticker club could be done very inexpensively. Like you sign up for, you know, $10 a month and you get 5 stickers or something, like the big die cut stickers or something. But the sticker club could also be, it could be sticker sheets, it could be planner stickers, it could be a mix of, like I could do, you know, you sign up for a planner sticker club and you get a series of planner stickers. So there's a lot of variations I could do with that. And I just think it would be, it could turn into a nice steady stream of income and really build on that repeat customer model, which I think is really important for artists. So and I think there's some interesting ways that I could promote that. You know, we did that episode on how to work with influencers and ambassadors. And I mentioned the idea of sending my product out to snail mail enthusiasts. Because I was already thinking about this when we had that conversation. But, you know, like sending out like a little greeting card pack to somebody who loves snail mail. And maybe the greeting card pack comes with a few stickers in it that you can decorate your card. Or I don't know. There's 100 different ways I could do it. But that's just something that I'm really toying with the idea and sort of figuring out. And it would be very inexpensive to ship, which is another thing that I think a lot about. I think about shipping all the time.
All the time. Funny enough, I had so in my Christmas decorations that I sold and that we talked about last week, one of the items I kept fluctuating on pricing, and a dear girlfriend of mine, who she's bought one of my paintings, she's bought Christmas ornaments every time. Like she's probably bought from me 6 or 7 times. So she's for sure in the wheelhouse of people who I go to and say, hey, I have a quick question for you. You're a repeat customer. Here's my pricing dilemma on this item. And I said to her, I'm thinking of putting this platter at $35, but the shipping price is a standard set shipping price for every package, and it's a really heavy platter, so I don't want to get screwed by the platter and da-da-da, so I'm going to mark the platter up to accommodate for the shipping price. And she said to me, gosh, like, you put so much, there's so much, like, that you think about in terms of the pricing of this item I never would have thought about. And anyway, we netted out on the price of the platter, but it was to cover the cost of shipping. And we went higher. And lo and behold, when I went to ship the first package, the shipping was higher than what I had charged the customer. But I sort of felt like I'm not losing money. And I didn't go back to them and say, you owe me $4.63 or something. But we have to think about those things.
Yeah. Can I just say, if you are thinking about starting an Etsy shop, a Shopify shop, whatever, and you're going to be the person shipping the product, like shipping is going to take over your life. It's like, it's exhausting thinking about shipping.
and it's not just shipping. So then you have the item. Then you have to package it all up. So there's the packaging costs.
Yeah,
right?
Packaging can be quite expensive depending on what you're sending.
Expensive. Exactly. And I've wrapped paintings, and I like the tape to put it on there, and I like to use really pretty washi tape that actually matches the paint. Yeah. I am that A-type personality, so it's not just like Scotch tape. I'm using washi tape that matches the colors that are found on the painting inside your wrapping. Like, Christ, Heather, you need to. But that's part of the branding and delivery of receiving.
It is, and that's something you have to keep in mind when you are a handmade business. People expect that from a handmade business. Yes. That's why they buy from you. They want the pretty. They want the extra touches. They don't want it delivered to them, in a plastic wrapper.
No, exactly.
From Amazon.
Exactly it. And I've had, funny enough, multiple comments, like notes saying, even your wrapping is pretty. Thank you so much. Yeah. And so it all goes into the branding, but I have a shipping and handling fee built into when you purchase things on, and so there's the shipping fee, but then there's the handling fee, and that handling fee is all of that pretty wrapping. It's the handwritten thank you note. It's all of that included, because that is part of the experience, but it's not for free.
It is, and that's something. I mean, you know what? I am at the point now where I'm like, anyone can draw a freaking greeting card. I have greeting cards with stick figures on them. Miss Doodle is literally a stick figure. Anyone can do that. And making the greeting card is not a big deal, but it's all the other stuff you have to think about. It's like the kind of paper, the card stock, how you're going to package it. Is this going to be in this shipping category, or is it too heavy and it's going to go into the next shipping category? Are you going to absorb the cost of shipping, or are you going to charge for shipping? And what happens if it's international, and blah, 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 blah.
Totally.
It wears you out. And, my boxed Christmas cards, which were actually not boxed unless you bought them locally. If you bought them locally, you got them in a very cute little box, but they were originally going to be boxed for everyone. But when I boxed them and put them, so Canada Post has this this little device.
Yep.
And if your package goes through the little window in the device, it's letter mail. If it doesn't go through the little window, it's a parcel. And the little box put me just over the letter mail rate, and it would have my shipping would have gone from $3 a package, which I was able to incorporate into the cost of the product, to anywhere from $13 to $20 a package, which I could not have incorporated into the box, and which, quite frankly, most people probably wouldn't have been willing to pay.
Correct.
So there was no boxes. Instead, they got packaged up in a cute little compostable plastic sleeve with a pretty sticker and some twine and stuff. Like, I made it as pretty as I could,
and it was so perfect. And it arrived at my house with the pretty little twine and everything. It was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. But that presentation played into it. It absolutely did.
Yeah, you have to think about those things, and you have to actually make one and put it all together and weigh it and measure it and walk it down to the post office if you have to, and ask them to process it like they would if you were paying for it. And as long as you don't do that in the middle of December, usually the post office staff, or at least the ones at my post office, they're very accommodating. They're just like, oh, what are you trying out today, kind of thing. And they're curious, and they're quite helpful. But yeah, shipping is shipping is a lot.
And funny enough, I would say that's one of, and it's just sort of popped into my head now, is I wasn't really thinking of it as a goal, but it's definitely something I really still, I make sure that everything is wrapped beautifully, but there isn't standardization. So if you bought something from me a year ago and you buy something from me today, it's coming to you differently. And it's still Heather, and it's still got a nice note and blah, blah, blah. but I feel like I need to brand it and solidify it a little bit more so that there's just more continuity. And that's something I need to think through. Is that something I invest in, right? Like, do I invest in Heather Travis wrapping paper or a large quantity of a very
Mm-hmm.
specific paper? What does that look like? Yeah. Like, do I hire Melissa to create a custom sticker for me, that goes on everything? I don't know. What does that look like? Does the cost make it too much? I don't know. I don't know. These are all the big questions.
And that's actually, as a graphic designer and somebody who does branding for small businesses, that was something that I was on top of from the get-go.
Yeah.
And I was very conscious of doing things in a way that would be very streamlined. And I found an amazing packaging company here in Canada. That was one of my big goals for 2020, was to wean myself off of Uline.
Yes.
Just for many reasons, which I will not go into in this podcast. But I didn't want to purchase from them anymore. And I found a fantastic outlet here in Canada with amazing customer service that I'm super happy with. And they've really helped me make sure that I have the right packing and shipping supplies and that it looks pretty. But I thought through all that stuff, like, what color do I want my twine to be? What color do I want my thank you stickers to be? All those little things. So but also streamlining the process of, like, an order comes in. This is the steps that I go through from the moment it comes in to the moment it goes out the door. And my business is a little different than yours in that I can pre-make products. So
yes.
Which was really important to me because I do have other businesses and I can't always, if an order comes in, I can't necessarily stop everything and produce the items right there. So I have a little setup in my office where I have at least 2 of everything available at all times.
Right.
And so that way, if an order comes in, it's just grabbing, packing, and walking it to the post office. I know all my weights. I know exactly how much it's going to cost me for shipping. I have stamps set aside. I use, because I ship letter mail for a lot of, in order to keep shipping low, I ship letter mail. And so I just use stamps. I pre-buy rolls. And then for bigger things to the US or international, I print Etsy shipping labels. And it's just boom, 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 and I can get it out very quickly. It literally takes me 5 minutes to process an order. And I feel like that will help me if volume increases. I've already got a process, in place. So yeah, systems was definitely on my mind last year. The other big thing I want to do this year is I do want to have my own e-commerce shop. I'm looking at Shopify or WooCommerce. Those are sort of where I'm at right now. I am in the process of redoing my website. I'm taking 2 weeks off over Christmas, and that is my big project. So my Fine Lime Designs website has been horribly neglected. It's completely out of date. I actually took it offline and just put a splash page up last week because I had this realization that all these Christmas cards people bought from me were going out into the wild. And I didn't want people like going, oh, this is cute. I wonder, let me look up Fine Lime Designs on the internet and seeing this excruciatingly ugly website. So I got it down, put a splash page up, and I am actively working on a redesign. So it will be an overarching site, because Fine Lime Designs is my overall business name, but there will be an area that will be for graphic design and small business services, and there'll be an area for illustrations and my shop. Right. So that's a big part of my visibility goal, and my also just being. One of the things I've learned from being on Etsy is that it's just like Facebook or Instagram. There's algorithms, there's SEO, there's all the things, and you are constantly fighting to be seen. So I think a lot of people hop onto Etsy and think that it's going to be a silver bullet and that people are just going to find you and magically start buying all this stuff from you. It's not what happens. It's very...
And same thing with Redbubble and Society 6.
Yeah.
Like, just because you upload, and so I think we talked about it last week we were talking about my sales on Redbubble, and I'd say like 90% of them have been friends and family that
Yeah.
have gotten the link directly from me.
Yes. And I think
Yeah.
most people who are on those platforms, and those are two things that I am going to be looking at for 2021 based on your experience. But most of the people I know who are on there, it's not, they don't expect sales to come to them from being on there. It's simply another place where they can give their customers options.
Totally.
So,
And funny enough, do you want to hear something really cool? And this just was like, and this ties it ties so many of our episodes together, but I thought it was just so awesome. So I had a woman who I follow her on Instagram. She follows me on Instagram. You know, we trade emojis, but like that's it. Her name's Heather. My name's Heather. That's it. And she sent me a note, I guess last week, and said, I have an idea for a collaboration. Or do you want to talk? That was her pitch. I have an idea for collaboration. Do you want to talk? And I said, no, back. Sure. Let's chat. Like, what do you want to talk about? And so we had a quick little chat, and she said, I'm a vintage furniture recoverer, refinisher, and I followed your art for a long, long time, but it wasn't until I saw your products on Redbubble that I got an idea and I want to do. And so we're working together on a collaboration where I'm going to do a bunch of hand painted fabrics for furniture for her.
oh, fun.
Which is so friggin' fun. And I'm like over the moon.
Yeah.
And so she's followed my art. She loves my stuff, but it wasn't until this other thing made an idea ping in her head that she's like, yeah, because that's the reason I launched the Redbubble collection, is I have a dream that I have my own line of fabrics that people like make into clothing that is my paint, like my designs, hand painted, and also a line of wallpaper.
Wallpaper, that would be so you. You know who else your fabrics would be perfect for? Quilters.
Yes.
Especially, there's so many quilters out there who are like really bringing a really modern, fresh, bold aesthetic to it. Like, it's not your grandma's patchwork quilt. Like,
right.
And your fabrics are just so bright and colorful. Like, I think you could do, I think that would be a great market for you.
I just thought, like, so that's where I want to go, which is why I did Redbubble, to kind of see, okay, are people interested in a shower curtain with my design on it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then getting that positive feedback from somebody who then reached out to you, and that, I think, for anybody listening, you just don't know who is going to see it and what ideas it might tweak in their head. And so taking the leap to do something bold, even if it's just seeing if the spaghetti is going to stick to the wall, like, I'm just going to make a few products for an Etsy store. I'm going to upload a couple designs to Redbubble. I'm just going to see if it works. Even if you don't sell anything, you never know who saw it, what it tweaked in their brain. There's an opportunity for collaboration. Like, I just feel if 2021 is the year you're thinking about doing one of those, I'd say just do it, because something will come out of it.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it a lot, and I think your work is so well suited to those because it's very pattern and like based, like it translates well to, and that's where I've just been struggling. I don't know if what I do, like, would people want a Miss Doodle shower curtain? Probably not, but she would look cute on it.
if she's showering with like fun little foam bubbles coming
maybe if she had like little rubber duckies with her or something like that.
I mean, I would. That would be so cute. And this is one of the beauties, and this is why it's very different than, for instance, like your Etsy shop. You can't have things in there. People, like, you physically have to have the product. Whereas Redbubble, like, I just uploaded it. If nobody buys a shower curtain, nobody buys a shower curtain.
Yeah.
I don't have 52,000 shower curtains in my garage.
Exactly.
That I'm now having to clear out, And so that, I think, is the beauty of it, is the dream. Okay, so I would love to have my own line of fabrics. Anybody listening? I would love to have my own line of wallpapers. Anybody listening? Universe. But are people even interested in it? And this has proven to me that potentially they are. And so it allows me to go a little bit further down that investigative train. And so I think there's business decisions that as artists we can make that are kind of like a half, it's not the full decision, it's like a half decision. And it's an experiment to give us some knowledge and also maybe a little confidence.
Yeah. Yes,
You know?
you totally hit the nail on the head with that. And I was just thinking as you were talking about that, my mind went off in like four different directions from that one that one little bit. But I was thinking, one of the things that you have had success with is notebooks. And
Yes.
maybe, okay, that's an item that you do take
Yes.
and investigate manufacturing and
Yes.
purchasing and doing your own. You know what? Your work would probably look great on washi tapes. That would be another item that you could
Yes.
create your own that actually wouldn't be a big financial investment for you. And washi tape is something that I have also been thinking about.
Yes.
And but again, that's a whole new learning process. It's about
Yes.
finding a manufacturer and going through the quality control process and designing specifically to go on a product, which is a different kind
Very
of
different
design.
thing. Yes.
But it's super, super interesting. And, Redbubble, you get a small fraction of what they sell it for a very good reason. You don't have to carry, like you said, 52,000 shower curtains in your basement.
Yes.
And you don't have to ship them out. Redbubble
Yep.
does all of that for you. So yes, you make a smaller percentage, but if something proves to be a really good seller on a platform like that, then you can investigate how you could take it to a manufacturer and make it at a reasonable cost and then sell it and make a larger profit from it. So
Especially since you and I have both proven that it's your network. It's the people I'm sending them away from my website to buy somewhere else. So why wouldn't I just try and keep them here?
yes, and
Right?
there's a local YouTuber that I follow here, Bailey J, who I started following her years ago because she does a lot of Copic marker art, which is the type of art that I tend to do. And I learned a lot from her. But in the last year, she has always sold on Redbubble. I think that was how I knew about it when we had the conversation. But this year, she still sells certain products on Redbubble. But in the last year and a half, she has started manufacturing her own products. She does pins and prints and washi tape, and she's just started doing acrylic charms. And this year, she did an advent calendar with all her products inside it. And
Genius.
I know. And so she has been just watching her go through the process of taking more and more of her business under her own control has been really fascinating to watch. And I've learned a ton from seeing her go through the process. And she started off very small. She just started off with like one pin, one enamel pin. And she had a lot of experience selling at like Comic-Con type events.
Okay.
They're all over. So she always had a table in a lot of the merch halls. And so she made everything, like she made her own stickers. She made her own buttons, like pinnable buttons, for your jean jacket kind of thing. But then she graduated to enamel pins, and she gets a lot of it manufactured in China and shipped to her. She does all the packing and everything from her house, and she does a quarterly store launch kind of thing. Like she doesn't have, her store is not open 365 days a year. She does a launch, but she has over 1 million YouTube subscribers that she has built up over the course of a decade, right?
Yeah.
And so she has this audience that she is selling to, and she has even said this multiple times, like, I keep waiting for the audience to say, yeah, okay, we've got enough Bailey J stuff.
Right.
Like, when is that day going to happen?
Yeah.
And it hasn't happened for her yet. And I don't know if it will happen. She keeps putting new stuff out. New people keep finding her. But the point being that, you have to try. You don't have to go from 0 to 1,000. You can start with one enamel pin, one washi tape design.
Yeah.
And just see what happens.
And just see what happens. Exactly.
Yeah. So I've really been inspired by her, which is also one of the reasons why I'm really thinking about taking, like, building my own e-commerce.
Yeah.
But the thing that I recognize is that my 2,000 Instagram followers is a far cry from her 1.1 million YouTube followers, right?
Yeah.
So I have to temper my expectations.
And that's funny enough. And I would plant that as I didn't even really, I didn't think of it as a goal, but it's something that I've had in the back of my brain as something I really need to work harder on, is growing my network online. And really, because I've realized the value, I'm not that I didn't ever recognize the value, but I'm the growth of that and not forgetting about them is I think the most important. And I would say if you're debating even selling anything online as an artist, if you have no community, you're going to have a very, very hard uphill battle on selling those things online. And so if you don't have a community online, I would say your goal for 2021 is to build that community so that in 2022 you could start selling to them. Yes. Because without them, as Melissa and I have proven, I would have
zero sales this
exactly.
year. Well, no, not zero. I would have 4. I think that's how many people bought from me on Etsy who I have no idea who they are.
And funny enough, the people who are, quote, random people who purchased things from me, the only reason they purchased things from me is because somebody else in my community purchased something that then was shared, that then the breadcrumbs led them back to me.
It's hugely important. And it's one of the things I notice in a lot of the artist groups and product groups and Etsy seller groups that I'm in on Facebook and on Reddit. Reddit is a great place, by the way, if you're looking for people doing your thing. But just seeing so many people, particularly this last month as Black Friday has come and gone and people are gearing up for Christmas, who are coming in and saying, I opened my shop 2 months ago and I haven't had a single sale. And just because it is, a lot of people just think I will just build it and they will come. And that's not how it works. You will get 1 or 2 people who will show up randomly, but you can't expect Etsy to do all the work for you. You can't expect Redbubble to do all the work for you. That's not, you have to just look at it as, this is a platform that gives me an opportunity to put my work out there. But the marketing, it's still on me. Okay. Etsy does run ads, and if you earn over a certain amount of revenue, you do have to participate in their ad program. I am not close to that number yet, so I only have to run ads if I choose to. And that's another thing, Etsy has this mandatory level. If you hit this amount in sales, you have to be in their ad program, and it's again, there's a fee. For that. And I don't necessarily know that I want to be making $10,000 on Etsy, because I don't necessarily know that I want Etsy to be advertising me without me having control over that advertising.
Yes.
So
that's a big one.
Those are things to think about as you're starting out. Like it is definitely, you can't expect to just put your stuff out there and have people buy it. It just doesn't work that way.
No.
Occasionally it will. There was when Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away earlier this year, there was one woman in a group that I'm in. She had a Etsy shop and she sold Ruth Bader Ginsburg RBG stickers. And her sales went through the roof after she passed away.
Of course.
And so things like that happen, but not very often.
Yeah.
You can't bank on it, not if your plan is to build a sustainable business.
Not at all. And in fact, not at all, exactly. And I'm so great. I really am so grateful for my experience in PR that I can rely on that for my art business, because I mean, you joked about it earlier, but I pitch myself left, right, and center all the time. I pitch myself, and I basically walk around tooting my own horn all day, every day. Because if I don't,
nobody else will.
Exactly. If I don't, who will? And I'm not saying it out of a woe is me. I'm saying it out of, I have confidence in myself. I have confidence in my abilities. And if you don't see value in it, totally fine by you. I'm not judging. If you don't see value in my art, no problem. Moving on to the next one. And I don't take it as a criticism. I think that's one of the big things that pitching has taught me, is that I get way more no's than I get yeses. But it's when you do get the yes, that's when you're like, yeah, see, exactly, I was right, right? And and you just keep moving on. But you have to pitch yourself. If you didn't put your products on Etsy, they would never have gotten there. You have to do the work. If I didn't put my stuff on Redbubble, if I didn't pitch myself to the people, like I just pitched myself to my high school alumni newsletter, which is widely read. I sent a note, hi, it's me, and here's a pitch on why you should feature me in your next news. Because and it's funny, I sent a note to my girlfriends, who I went to high school with. I'm like, so just pitch myself. And they're like, you totally should. You're so deserving. And I knew that was going to be their response, but then they were never going to send a pitch for me.
No, exactly. You have to.
And I have no expectation that exactly. Like, what, I'm going to just sit here and like mentally, telepathically, like hope that my BFF is going to send a note to somebody saying you should do a feature on my girlfriend. No, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Like, I think, you just have to put, there is a component of running your own business. And I will just say this, having run my own businesses for over a decade, if I had not had that experience behind me when I started my Etsy shop, I probably would have stopped my Etsy shop by now. I would have just given up. I would have been so disheartened, and I completely understand when I see people who online saying I haven't had any sales. I get it. Like, it's really hard. And I have to remind myself, the businesses that I do have that are successful right now, they didn't start out successful.
Yeah.
Right? They started out to crickets. But I have a decade's worth of experience of learning how to build a community, how to market, how to try new things, how to take calculated risks, which I think is important. And there is a certain component to it of, like you said, throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. That is part of building a business. You do try stuff and you're like, you know what, that didn't work. On to the next thing. I'm in a neighborhood Facebook group for my little town. We have a neighborhood Facebook group. I think there's about 15,000 people in it. And there's days of the week where you're allowed to sell. And I have seen some people in there who have built their entire businesses out of selling to this group. It's not something that has worked for me. I don't think I'm quite the right fit in terms of what I put out there for that particular group. But the people who have done really well are cottage food industries.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So people who do meal prep services, or
Brilliant.
people who just make jams or honeys or all those things. There's cookies. Like, there's a whole group of women in there who make cookies and treats and things like that. And they show up every week. And you know what? This is what I have this week. It's chocolate chip cookies and oatmeal cookies and $15 for a dozen or whatever. And they do a tremendous roaring trade in that business, and they don't really have anywhere else that they sell.
Amazing.
So I tried it, didn't work for me. They tried it, it worked for them. Like, you don't know until you try.
Totally. And I would say too, funny enough, so like I'm kicking myself for how long it took me to get on Redbubble. And then I thought to myself, well, I'm only going to do Redbubble. I'm not going to do Society6 because they have lesser margins for artists. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, finally I decided to just bite the bullet, and I'm glad I did. But just because you can be all the places doesn't mean you need to be all the places.
No.
Or that all the places are right for your business or your art or that moment where you're at in your business. And I would say I wasn't ready for Redbubble a year ago. Now I am.
Yeah.
And I think that, we touched on it, was, looking to other artists and being like, oh my gosh, they've really got their shit together. They know where everything, like, look at them. I'm never going to get there. And so first off, I would say, don't believe everything you see online, because I would say optically, there's a lot of people who believe that I'm a very successful artist, and it does not pay my mortgage. Like, flat out, my art does not pay for my life. And I would say, if you looked at some of the posts that I've made, I'm not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes, but I'm also trying to pump myself up. Right. And so don't believe everything you see, and there is a slog that happens in the back end. And I would say, especially for art, don't compare yourself to others in terms of the business aspect of it. That's a really weird trap to fall into, is seeing, well, if this person's doing it, why can't I? That's a different it's a different person, different business, different art. Everything's different.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why you do, listening to podcasts like this, or
Yeah.
scrolling through Reddit and seeing what other people are doing. Like, catalog all those things, all the things that
Yeah.
Heather and I have just talked about that have worked for us or that we want to try, try them out. Maybe they'll work for you, maybe they
Yeah.
won't, but you
Yeah.
won't know until you try. And if they don't work for you, don't get all
No.
in a knot over it, which I think can be so easy for us to do. Just be like, okay, you know what? Didn't work. And that's another thing. Know when to just say this isn't working.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay if it's not working, if you're putting in a ton of work and you're not getting any sales, or you're making like maybe one or two and it's not working, like, okay, this isn't working, time to move on. And that
Yes.
moving on could be closing your shop, but it could also be just trying something completely different to market your shop, and seeing what happens, because you don't know. I think another thing, before I forget about it, but one of the things I'm really going to focus on this year is building my email list for my art business. I started very late this year. It's one of the few things Etsy does allow you to do. You can direct people to sign up for your email list and offer them like a coupon code if they sign up.
Brilliant.
So I want to be able to talk to my customers without Etsy or Redbubble or any of those places being a gatekeeper.
Yes.
So it's very important to me to have an email list. But also the other thing that to me is very important is I want those people on that list to feel like they are the most important customers in the world. And so my list has 10 people on it. So again, being real here, starting from scratch, I got 10 people on it, and I did a VIP sale for them the week before Black Friday. And I emailed them all and I said, I'm doing a VIP sale just for you. This is the best sale I am going to offer all year. It will be better than my Black Friday sale. Here it is. Here's the code. And I put a minimum order. I think they had to order $25 for the code to work. And it was 25% off. I did, from 10 people, 10 people, my items range in price from $4 to $9.99, because I didn't sell any of my box Christmas cards on this because it was too late. So $4 to $10. I did over $100 in sales from 10 people on my email list who I was able to talk to directly.
Amazing.
Yeah, like, imagine if that had been 1,000 people on that list.
Totally.
So
yes. And that's part of growing the community, right?
Yeah.
I'm with you. I think it's, especially with art, like, it's so, it sucks the fun out of the creativity when you have to focus on the business end. But I'll tell you, I find when the business end is working and you find something, I find that it fuels the creativity, because now I'm like, okay, this is for a purpose. I'm not just wasting money. Like, I appreciate when I paint, it makes me happy, but there's only so many walls I have in my house. Exactly. There's only so many walls my parents have in their house. And, I can't just keep throwing paint on canvases and blowing money on it and then just handing them away for free, right? Like, it has to be a business in order for me to keep doing it at the scale that I'm doing it.
Yes.
And so to have the business end start working is really, it fuels my creative fire. I'm like, rewarding. Yes, it is very rewarding. And so if the business end is feeling very troubling, struggling, difficult right now, I would urge people to not give up. Maybe see what they can refine in the process, or the things you need to change and edit. But you don't give up, because if you want your art to be your business, you have to focus on the business. You have to. Yeah. Like, you have to. Yep. You can't be Maud Lewis in a shack in Nova Scotia destitute at the end of your life. Like, that can't happen. We cannot, Yeah,
The starving artist model is ridiculous.
it is
I don't
ridiculous.
know where it ever came from, to be quite honest. It's ridiculous. I mean, you look at people like, you know, Leonardo da Vinci and the whole Renaissance period. Those people were not starving.
No.
They had patrons
Yes.
who spent a lot of money on them
Yes.
so that they could do this. And that's essentially what we're trying to do. We're trying to build a network of patrons who are so excited about what our next thing is going to be. And they're just
Yeah.
waiting, they want to be a part of that, and they want to support it. And yeah, so let's get rid of the starving artist myth. That's not to say that you're going to be rolling in riches your first year out, because you're not.
No.
But
No, but there's ways to get there.
yes,
For sure.
absolutely. And at the end of the day, creating new art is one of my favorite things.
Mm-hmm.
Turning that art into things like cards and stickers and prints is one of my favorite things.
Mm-hmm.
Making cards, sitting at my desk and folding cards and putting them with their matching envelopes and stuffing them into their sleeves and packing up orders is one of my favorite things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the shipping piece, as I've already mentioned.
Yes.
But all those things make me so happy. And so I am very determined to find a way to make it so that I can keep doing those things and have the financial freedom
Yes.
that I want for the particular lifestyle that I want.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what that number is for you, and it doesn't matter what the lifestyle you have envisioned is. Like, none of that matters to anyone but you.
Correct.
So I think that's really important to remember. If you want to have a platinum Mercedes or whatever,
Yeah.
that's your business. It's nobody else's business. Don't let anybody make you feel bad for wanting something crazy. But at the same time, if that place for you is just to be able to have your mortgage paid off, have your car paid off, and be able to contribute to your kids' college fund and your retirement fund, that's fine too. Like, it doesn't,
Totally.
it's just, the only person whose business it is yours. And yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I agree, and I agree with you. And that's, and Brian, my husband, has commented on it more since we moved into this house and we have the studio. But he comments on the happiness he sees all over my face when I come downstairs from the studio. He's like, look at that, and I always assume I have paint on me. Is the, like, what's that funny look for? And he just looks and he's like, you're just so happy, like it's written all over your face, and that joy, I think, and I've gotten more joy out of my art in the past couple of years because I have said to myself, this is important to me. I have chosen to recognize how important it is to me and how much I want it to be a bigger part of my life. And because of that, it continues to give more joy and fuel the business side of things and the headaches around the business side of things. Like, how do I get all of the money that Redbubble has given into my PayPal account, into my actual bank account, for instance?
Yeah.
Like, that headache is worth it because I got huge value, not money, value out of it.
Yeah. It's part of the life-work balance, right? Like,
Totally.
it has to be rewarding. It has to pay the bills, but it also has to be rewarding. It has to make you feel good. And at the end of the day, those two have to find a way to be married to each other.
For sure they do.
Yeah.
For sure they do. And I would say, just to sort of wrap this up, and I know one of the things we were going to talk about was giving back and how are we going to do that? And I think art is a big part of giving back. And I feel like the world continuously, because of all the things that we're going through globally right now, there's a lot of readjustment of priorities. People are realigning their priorities in terms of home, family, business, all of those things. We want things that are more sustainably made. We want things that are coming from local sources. We want things that have a personal connection to us. And I think as artists, we have a big opportunity to seize that and to recognize that opportunity to give in terms of the greater cultural world, like the statement that we make with our art, or whether we do make a statement, what it looks like, how we put it out into the world, how it's shipped, how we communicate, how we talk about our product, the business decisions that we make, all of those things, like it's all headed in a really positive direction. And I think artists, I think the global issue that we're facing has actually put a greater emphasis on music, art, history, like the things that really fundamentally shape who we are as human beings.
All those things I did back in university that people said weren't going to get me a job.
Correct. Exactly. Exactly.
No, I think that's a really good point. And just on, giving back is a great way to end on, especially at the end of 2020. And something I don't have a definitive answer for this. It's something I have been thinking about a lot, particularly because November was just a rough month for me mentally. I just struggled so hard. And it's not because we're under new restrictions and things like that this month. I am quite happy being at home. That doesn't faze me at all.
I love it.
And it hasn't fazed me at all. But where I've really struggled the last month is just seeing the news and seeing people's unwillingness to show empathy or
Yes.
walk 10 miles in somebody else's shoes or see the world.
Walk a step in somebody's shoes,
I
let
know.
alone a mile. Yes.
And it has really made me start thinking about where the first thing it did, I actually decided for the month of December, I'm going to do 24 days of random acts of kindness, just
Beautiful.
putting them out there.
Yep.
But it's made me really start thinking about, like, one of the big things that I already mentioned in 2020 was really taking a look at who I'm buying from, particularly within my business. Like,
Yep.
like who do they support? Who do they stand out and
Yes.
speak up for?
Yep.
Do they speak up? Because some of them don't. And
Yes.
and if I don't know what they stand for, maybe it's time to move on. But I've also been looking at, from a packaging standpoint, does this, I'm a minimalist. I try to be as sustainable as possible in my day-to-day life. I am a big fan of the reduce, reuse, recycle,
Yep.
with recycle being the last one. And
Yep.
how can I have my packaging reflect that?
Yes.
So all those things are things that weigh on my mind very much.
Yes.
And something I'm really evaluating, like, in all aspects of all my businesses this year going forward. Just who do I want to do business with? How do I want my businesses to impact the planet? And who do I want to support, from a giving standpoint?
Yep.
So there's
Yep.
a lot to think about.
It is a lot to think about. I know. Oops, sorry.
But it's more cowbell.
I know. And I agree with you. Like, I think it's so, and I think there's more people having those.
I
at
think
least
so,
hope there's
very
more
much
people
so.
having those thoughtful, really thoughtful things, and thinking about how do I want to be that change in the world. And that's why, and we talked about it, I think last episode was, I was debating doing a series of artwork, sort of coming from I don't want to say negative place, but coming from a slightly more emotional place, or heavy place. And I was hesitant to do that because I talk about being happy art for happy walls. And I don't want to reduce myself as an artist, but I'm also really aware of what I put out into the world and the impact that it has. Not that I'm, saying I'm impacting millions of people in their mood with my artwork, but I don't want to put icky things out there.
No, but at the same time, part of being an artist is
Yes.
growth, right?
Yes.
And if you can put out, if
Yes.
art is the way that we express ourselves as
Yes.
artists, and if you need to express yourself in a way that is maybe darker than people are used to, that's okay. Not everybody's going to like it, but it's just part of your creative journey. And maybe you need to get that out there so that the light stuff can find its way back in.
Well, exactly. And it's funny enough, and I've also been thinking and this is the PR girl in me, of course, but it's how do you frame up the story, right? And so it's not about the darkness, but it's about the story that needs to be told and how can we connect so that there's just opportunities. But I think it's the energy that we put out into the world. And I think as artists, we have a big responsibility to be a source for inspiration. And I think we're realizing that more and more. And funny enough, just to end on this from my perspective, the art classes that I've been doing with the kids, like that has fueled me in so many ways. And I have no plan on stopping them in 2021. We're plowing right through.
Awesome.
We are making napkin holders for Christmas table in our crafting class on Friday. But that, I think, just simply creating. Like, and I've had my girlfriends sit down, they just plunk themselves down beside their kids and we do the crafting together. And I think that playing like a child releases something that.
Absolutely. I can't wait till we can do that in person again.
Yeah.
It's just something about sitting around with your friends and having your hands busy while you chat, and just words tend to flow more freely when your hands are busy, you know?
Yes.
And you wind up having conversations that are that just wouldn't have happened otherwise. And I think that's really important. So yes, I think this was a really great chat. And I hope that over the last 3 weeks with Angelina's conversation on goals, and last week where Heather and I reviewed our art businesses for 2020 and talking about how we want to move those businesses forward for 2021 this week, I hope we have given you all lots of things to think about and maybe some inspiration as to what you want to do with your business. And if you've got some new things that you want to try, you know, we'd love to hear about them. Drop us a note on our Instagram account at And She Looked Up, or reply to the show notes, send us an email, andshелookedup@gmail.com. There's lots of ways to find us. Yes. But I would love to hear what you're all planning for 2021 in your businesses, whether you make or create or provide creative services. Just, you know, it's always, I really enjoy hearing how people are planning for their businesses. This is going to be the last episode for 2020. I am going to be, because I think this will technically put us, the next episode would, in theory, release on Christmas Day. And the episode after that would release on New Year's Day. So this is going to be it for this year. I am going to still put out episodes for the next 2 weeks, but they'll be older episodes. I'm going to do our 2 most popular episodes from the entire season so far. So for those of you who may be new to the podcast, both of them are episodes from much earlier on. So, you know, you can catch up a little bit, and I'll be back in January with more guests. Heather will be back once a month, and we'll be talking about creative business things. And I'm super excited. I've been having some really lovely chats with a lot of different female Canadian creators in the background, trying to bring them on the show. So I'm hoping that those are going to work out, and lots of ideas for things to talk about. If you have an idea that you would like to hear on the show, or that you would like me and Heather specifically to talk about, please drop us a note. We would love to hear about it, and answer your questions or try and help you out with a problem that you're having. That would be fantastic. Amazing. So in the spirit of all that, and in the words of my very favorite Christmas song from Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Is that right? That sounds weird. Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I think it's right.
I
don't know why that sounds so weird to me all of a sudden.
I spelled my name wrong in an email yesterday, so don't ask me. Okay.
Yes, I wish you all a hopeful Christmas and a brave new year, which I think is very appropriate for 2021. Yes. So all the best to all of you and your families. And I know this Christmas is going to be a very different holiday season, but I hope that you are all able to make the most of it and look forward to a much brighter 2021.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Heather. It was lovely. I always enjoy our chats.
I know.
All right, everyone, and we will see you in the new year. Thank you so much for joining us for the And She Looked Up Creative Hour. If you're looking for links or resources mentioned in this episode, you can find detailed show notes on our website at andshelookedup.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for our newsletter for more business tips, profiles of inspiring Canadian creative women, and so much more. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the show via your podcast app of choice so you never miss an episode. We always love to hear from you, so we'd love it if you'd leave us a review through iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Drop us a note via our website at andshelookedup.com or come say hi on Instagram at andshelookedup. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.